Ladies and gentlemen, God removes what your heart is too loyal to let go of. That might not feel fair at first. It might feel like betrayal, confusion, even heartbreak, because you loved them, you trusted them. You gave more than they ever asked for, and still it wasn't enough. But the truth is, your heart had made a home for something God never intended to stay. You kept holding on, believing in their potential, believing that if you loved harder, forgave more, bent farther, they would finally see your worth. But God didn't want you stuck in cycles that only drained your soul. He didn't want you attached to someone who was emotionally unavailable but spiritually dangerous. So he stepped in. It starts quietly. Maybe they become distant. Maybe they betray your confidence. Maybe they do something that shocks you, and you sit there trying to make sense of the chaos. You cry out, "God, why?" But the real question is, "God, what are you saving me from?" See, we think love means staying. We think loyalty means enduring mistreatment. But what if your loyalty has become your prison? What if your compassion has turned into chains? God sees what you can't see. He knows the conversations behind your back, the intentions behind their smiles, the lies hidden in their praise. He knows that what looks like loyalty on your part is really a fear of letting go. You don't want to start over. You don't want to feel alone. So you convince yourself they'll change. You convince yourself they mean well. But the more you try to fix it, the more broken you become. God doesn't remove people out of cruelty. He removes them out of mercy. He's not punishing you, he's preparing you to stand in rooms that demand your full peace, your full voice, your full purpose. And some people simply cannot go where you're going. They don't have the humility to walk beside you without competing. They don't have the spiritual maturity to celebrate you without secretly resenting your shine. And God won't allow what's fake to live in the place he's trying to bless. So he separates. Not because you're not loving, but because they're not aligned. Not because you weren't enough, but because they were too full of themselves to recognize what they had in you. You weren't hard to love. They were too selfish to love right. You weren't too much. They were too small for your calling. But your heart wanted to believe in them. Your heart remembered the good times. Your heart was too loyal to let go of the illusion. So God made the move for you. He let it fall apart. He let them walk. He allowed the mask to slip, because if he didn't, you would have stayed. You would have kept patching holes in a boat that was already sinking. You would have kept giving CPR to a relationship God already called dead. You didn't see the poison behind the praise, but God did. You didn't see the manipulation behind the charm, but God did. Exposure is not revenge. It's divine realignment. When God begins to reveal who people really are, it's not because he wants to embarrass them or shame you for trusting them. It's because he wants to put everything back in its rightful place. There are people you've elevated in your life, people you've trusted with your secrets, your spirit, your peace, who were never meant to hold that kind of access. They didn't earn your trust, they exploited it. But because your heart was sincere, you kept justifying what didn't feel right. You called it love, you called it growth, but deep down you felt the unease. You noticed the patterns, you saw the pride, you heard the dishonesty in their words, but you were loyal to potential instead of truth. God doesn't expose people to hurt you. He exposes them to heal you. He lets the mask fall so you stop walking in circles. Because as long as you're in a cycle with someone who's only pretending to love you, you'll keep shrinking yourself. You'll keep questioning your worth, doubting your discernment, and feeling guilty for wanting peace. That's not what God called you to, and that's why the exposure feels so sudden. It's not that the person changed. It's that God finally let you see them without filters. Sometimes you'll witness a shift in their attitude, a sudden coldness, or a subtle betrayal that makes no sense at first. You'll ask, "What did I do wrong?" But you didn't do anything wrong. You just stopped feeding their ego. You stopped playing small. You stopped ignoring the truth. And once the light hits the darkness reacts. They get defensive. They flip the script. They might even accuse you of being the toxic one, but don't be deceived. Exposure always comes before elevation. God is realigning your life by revealing what doesn't belong in it anymore. You may feel pain when people's true intentions come to light. It stings to realize the love wasn't real, the support wasn't genuine, and the loyalty was conditional. But what's more painful is living a life built on lies. God won't allow you to settle in spaces that dishonor your spirit, so he reveals the hidden things, not for vengeance, but for your vision, so you can see clearly, so you stop second guessing yourself. So you stop watering dead roots and calling it patience. Exposure is God stepping into the story and saying, "No more pretending." It's him setting the record straight when people have tried to paint false pictures about who you are and what really happened. It's not about public embarrassment. It's about private correction. Realignment means things shift. Relationships break. Truths surface. And sometimes what gets exposed isn't just the other person. It's your own patterns, your own tolerances, your own blind spots. That's grace too, because once you see clearly, you can't go back to confusion. Once the lie is revealed, you're free from the performance. Narcissists crave attention, but God demands intention. There's a big difference between someone who wants to be seen and someone who wants to serve. A narcissist will show up when the spotlight's on, but they disappear when the real work begins. They speak love but act in control. They act like they care, but only when it benefits them. They're loud with charm and quiet with accountability. But God is not impressed with charisma. He's looking for character. He's not measuring your presence by how many people clap when you speak, but by how many hearts you lift when nobody's watching. That's why in this season, he's separating those who are performance-driven from those who are purpose-driven. The narcissist is obsessed with being admired. They thrive on being the center of attention, even if it means manipulating people to stay relevant. They'll show up when the room is full but go missing when you need consistency. They love the image of love, not the reality of it, because real love requires sacrifice, patience, humility, all things that threaten a narcissist's need for control. They want relationships that orbit around their ego, not ones that challenge their growth. But God is not in the business of feeding your pride. He's in the business of refining your purpose. When God steps into your life, he begins to confront everything that's been built on false motives. That's why people who once praised you might suddenly turn cold. It's not that you change, it's that the spirit in you started disrupting the spirit in them. A narcissist can't handle when you stop needing their validation. They can't stand it when you get whole without their approval. So they'll twist your truth, sabotage your peace, and try to gaslight your growth. But God won't let that stand for long. He sees the intentions behind the actions, the motives behind the ministry, the heart behind the hustle. You might have been fooled by the performance for a while, the way they showed up, the way they talked, the way they knew how to say all the right things, but then came the contradictions, the patterns, the control, and while you were trying to be kind, God was calling you to be wise. Because attention seekers will always chase applause, but intention seekers chase alignment. They're not concerned with the crowd, they're concerned with the calling. That's why some doors are closing, some relationships are falling away. Not because you've done anything wrong, but because God is protecting what's real. He won't let imitation stand beside authenticity. He won't let false humility wear the crown of servant leadership. You've seen enough now to understand the difference between flattery and fruit, between hype and holiness, between performance and purpose. And now that you know you can't unsee it, God is calling you higher, and with that elevation comes discernment. Not everyone who's loud is right. Not everyone who's present is loyal. And not everyone who looks blessed is walking in God's intention. Silence isn't weakness. It's God gathering evidence. There are moments when you want to speak up, to defend yourself, to expose the lies and call out the manipulation. You feel the weight of injustice pressing against your chest, and the silence feels unbearable. But God isn't ignoring it, He's documenting it. Every word spoken against you behind closed doors, every smile that masked envy, every scheme plotted in the dark. God is watching it all unfold, not just what they do, but why they do it. Not just what they say in public, but what they whisper in secret. While you're crying in prayer, they're plotting in pride. But God is letting the silence speak louder than your defense ever could. You see, a narcissist thrives on your reaction. They want your outburst so they can call you emotional. They want your frustration so they can label you unstable. They provoke and poke until they can frame the narrative. But when you stay quiet, when you choose peace over performance, they lose control. That silence becomes a mirror, and the longer it lasts, the more their reflection begins to crack. Because while they think they're winning, God is allowing them the space to show exactly who they are without your interference. In the silence, your integrity gets tested. You want to prove your side, you want to clear your name, but sometimes the most powerful move is stillness. Because when God is in the process of revealing truth, any words you add might interfere with his plan. He's not just clearing your name, he's correcting the entire foundation. That's why he allows the lies to spread for a time. That's why he allows you to feel misunderstood. Because the longer the deception runs, the more undeniable the truth becomes when it finally arrives. There are people who will mistake your silence for guilt, for surrender, for weakness. Let them. What they don't realize is that silence in the hands of God is a weapon. He uses it to build your endurance, to sharpen your discernment, to remove distractions and show you who really belongs in your circle. In the silence, you begin to hear him more clearly. You realize that not every battle is yours to fight. Not every insult deserves your response. Not every lie requires a rebuttal. Sometimes, God is just preparing the stage for revelation. He's exposing pride through patience. He's dismantling control through stillness. While they rush to defend their image, God is quietly preparing to reveal their intentions. And when he does it, it won't be subtle. He will shine light in every corner, peel back every layer, and show who stood on truth and who lived in illusion. Your silence is not surrender, it's trust. It's saying, God, I know you see what I can't say. And that kind of trust is dangerous to darkness. It starves the narcissist of the drama they need. It protects your peace while God finishes writing the story his way.